So last year for Halloween, to celebrate, we watched every Halloween movie we could get our hands on.
We sure did, Chris.
Yeah, fun time.
Yeah, I had a blast. Yeah.
Didn't exactly come out before Halloween. We launched.
Did it not?
No, it didn't. We launched the website November 1st. Dropped all 4 episodes that we had recorded in preparation in a single day.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think that kind of shot all of them in the foot in a sense, to a degree.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I do remember having vague talks about trying to get it out before
Halloween,
Halloween.
like on a Halloween day, kind of.
and you working very hard, and me being like,
Yeah.
oh no, I wasn't super about that, and you like stood up and you're like, okay, you took your sweater off. You're like, I'm sorry, I'm getting real hot just thinking about all the work I just put into this.
Yeah, it was like 2 or 3 days of like no sleep. It's crazy. But this year we had a little more time to prep, and actually a couple more movies. I think, just a matter of fact, there's more Friday the 13th movies. So this time around, we're starting early, September 26th.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
When you guys hear it, this is our first Friday the 13th episode. Our plan is by the 31st to have tackled every Friday the 13th movie. And I thought, what better place to start than the beginning? Friday the 13th Part 1. But anyways, I want to talk about something specific. You know, it's still kind of a cold open, I'd say. Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel and Ebert. Those guys. I am so bad with last names all the time, even though I've heard.
You're not super great with first names either.
Nope. But anyways, they are a couple of guys who just hated the Friday the 13th series. It's my understanding at the time.
Can't imagine why.
From just what I've heard people say, this was seen as like the downfall of civilization. Like Friday the 13th was like just lauded as like the worst thing that had ever happened.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. One thing I would like to do, if you're interested, see how well it goes. I have a scan of some of Gene Siskel's critique of the Friday the 13th movie when it came out. So this was published in 1980. And Gene says, "It has been suggested to me that a great way to keep people from seeing a truly awful film is to tell them the ending. I like that idea a lot, and I know it is a powerful and controversial weapon, so you're going to have to trust me to use it wisely and sparingly. In the meat cleaver in the forehead movie Friday the 13th, which also features a bloody slow-motion decapitation, the killer turns out to be a bitter old lady played by Betsy, I've got a secret, Palmer. It seems that 23 years ago her son drowned at a summer camp while a couple of counselors were off having sex in a hayloft. Since the boy's drowning, there have been a rash of unsolved murders at the camp. Also, about 85 minutes into Friday the 13th, we learn that, sure enough, it's Palmer's fault. She's got this thing for counselors at Camp Crystal Lake, and if you wait another 10 minutes, you can see one of the teenage girl counselors cut Palmer's head off." So right from the rip, I'm gonna keep going, but right from the rip, just spoiled the movie in his review.
Yeah, I don't love. I'm not like a big. So bad with last names. Immediately forgot both of these guys' names.
Ebert and Siskel.
Siskel.
Yeah.
Not a big
Siskel and Ebert.
fan of theirs. Like I'm not like, you know.
Yeah.
I very rarely seek out their stuff, but every time I hear something by them like that, I'm just like, so cool. Like even I disagree with the way so cool. I don't necessarily agree with this being the downfall of civilization, but him being like, I don't want you to see this movie, so here's the ending. It's so cool.
Yeah, I got a love-hate relationship with them both. All right, up next. Now there, I Hope I've Ruined Friday the 13th, which is the latest film by one of the most despicable creatures ever to infest the movie business, Sean S. Cunningham. Bold claim.
It's pretty harsh, yeah.
You may have heard of one of his other films, The Last House on the Left, a film in which a teenage girl is forced at gunpoint to urinate on herself and then is shot in the head. Cunningham's specialty is that old, sick standby, teenage girls in peril. In scene after scene in Friday the 13th, we see girl counselors stripped down to their underclothes, only to be stalked by the unsame killer, who we now know is Palmer, looking very much like a lumberjack. One girl gets the meat cleaver slammed into her forehead, another's throat is slashed, and we see the fake fake blood spurt towards the camera. Cunningham takes it a little easier on the boys. One is merely stabbed in the stomach. Another's throat is pierced from the back of his neck by a knife. Then this scan cuts out, so we'll pick up where it continues. Blah, 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 blah from the hit shocker Halloween, which was much less bloody, much less explicit about its attacks, and much better directed by John Carpenter. So apparently did like Halloween. The point is this. There was nothing to Friday the 13th other than its sickening attack scenes. Remove them, and you're left with an empty movie. Friday the 13th is being distributed by Paramount Pictures, and it is very surprising to see a major, publicly held film company handle a movie as bloody as this. Previously, Cunningham had to work with small-time independent releasing companies. Paramount is a division of Gulf and Western Industries. If you want to complain about the film, you can write Charles G. Buldorn, the chairman of the board of Gulf and Western at blah, 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 blah. He gives out their address, basically, for you to write Paramount and complain. And then he also gives out Betsy Palmer's address and says, I'm sure a letter we'll get there. Yeah. So yeah, basically gives out Paramount and Betsy Palmer's address.
Yeah, he had me and then he lost me.
Friday the 13th has been given an R rating by the Motion Picture Association of America. If any film should be X-rated on the basis of violence, this is it. But Paramount pays part of the salary of the MPAA people who determine the ratings, and this is clearly a case where a big studio gets a less restrictive rating than is proper.
What a dweeb. That sucked, yeah.
Now, granted, I've always heard people say the thing about how he gave out her address. At least in that, could be elsewhere, I don't know, but at least in that, there's no specific, 123 Shady Lane. It just says she lives in this city in Connecticut, and if you send her letters general delivery, they'll get to her.
Okay. Well, it still sucks.
Yes, yeah. A little too far, but, yeah. You can see why I'm 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not a big deal to send it to Paramount, but to drop, hey, why don't you go ahead and send the actress some letters? She lives in this state.
Also, I remember reading it. She wasn't a huge fan of this movie either. She thought it was garbage and was just doing a job. So
yeah, she got paid $10,000, which was just enough for her to get a car she wanted.
Yeah, so
yeah,
calm down, not Roger Ebert.
But from there, and I think in response to, I'll mention what's in response to. That was a weird sentence structure. But anyways, I believe Siskel and Ebert also hosted a TV special talking about these slasher films and basically proposing, very misogynist and that kind of a thing, right? And in response, there's that article by Carol Clover that I always bring up, the Her Body Himself, the feminist rethinking of horror films, about how it's empowering for women, and that it's because of its low budget and low studio interference, and it's so just closely related to young people, kind of a thing, that it's a very valuable tool to kind of get a finger on the pulse for how this generation is feeling about gender identity or sexuality and stuff like that. I believe that was written in response to Cecil and Ebert taking over the airwaves to really, really slander the names of slasher films. Not to say that I'm not saying that from a biased place where I'm they have value. I can't believe they'd tarnish the great name of Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan. But anyways, what's your read on all that?
Bunch of hogwash. Now I don't.
Interesting to think these movies sparked such heated debate, I guess.
Yeah.
Literally leading to academic articles being published in books.
Yeah, I think it didn't need to be. And I think Ebert and Siskel.
Yeah.
The idea of them going on TV to talk about that like that, so pretentious. That's the worst thing I've ever heard. Even his review, the later half of his review, where he's like, you should complain. You should write these people and complain. That sucks and blows. I don't think these movies are worth that kind of time or effort.
Yeah.
We'll get into it when we start talking about the movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like these movies.
Mm-hmm.
Even the bad Halloweens that we watched.
Yeah.
I can find something in there.
Really? Those ones? I really can't stand the Halloween sequels.
I can. There's a awful charm to those that I like.
Yeah.
Again, I'll get more into it in a minute, but yeah, no, this first Friday the 13th, I can't imagine seeing it and being as upset as he was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can imagine watching this in the 80s and being like, okay.
Yeah.
And then moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
I do like the piece written by
Carol Clover.
I do think that's fun and insightful.
Yeah.
Pretty accurate. But what's his name?
Oh, Siskel.
Yeah, Siskel and Ebert. Fuck
Yeah.
those guys.
Wow.
Fun story. Apparently they hated each other in real life. Like, just couldn't stand each other.
Oh, really?
Like,
Was there a reason? Just differing opinions?
just
or?
differing opinions and just their personalities. Like, they were still like friends, but also enemies. Like, they were colleagues and they got along, but they also just couldn't stand each other. I remember hearing a story about the two of them being on a plane, and Siskel was just talking and talking and talking and talking. And it was just driving Roger Ebert crazy. And so he wrote a little note, gave it to a flight attendant to give to him. And the note said, "Dear Mr. Siskel, these are your pilots. We heard you were on the flight, and we're just huge film fans, and we're huge fans of your work. So if it's not too much and you get a minute, we'd love for you to come up here and talk to us about movies." And so he got the letter and was like, oh, and just went strolling up there and walked into the pilot's cabin and got in a shit ton of trouble.
That's very funny.
It's the best practical joke I've ever heard.
Yeah. You know who loved these movies?
Who?
Mr. Joe Bob Briggs, another film
Ooh.
critic
I do love Joe Bob.
who I respect a bit more. Very punk rock approach that man had.
He's the only other person besides myself that I know who loved Halloween Kills, so I like Joe Bob.
But from here, that's about that for that anecdote. So we could probably just roll the music.
All right.
Eating Soup Alone is a podcast hosted by me, Christopher Crumley, and co-hosted by Nicholas Johnson. We try our best to ramble incoherently about a handful of movies at least once a week.
So, starting with Friday the 13th, part 1.
Right.
Mealtime. Here's the mail jingle. I gotta write one of those one of these days.
Yeah.
I keep thinking about it.
Also, I didn't get those files.
No, shit.
Never said.
Okay. Well, I'll do the quick pause here.
All right, here we go. Friday the 13th, Part 1. In 1978, the little indie horror film that could, Halloween, was released in theaters, unknowingly solidifying the formula of the slasher film. Costing only $300,000 to make and collecting $70 million at the box office, Halloween took the world by storm, created a genre, and inspired Paramount Productions and Warner Brothers to go, hey, we can do that, and worse probably. So less than 2 short years later, Friday the 13th was released on May 9th, 1980, directed by Sean S. Cunningham, written by Victor Miller, and starring a bunch of people around Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon. Friday the 13th cemented itself firmly into the Horror Film Hall of Fame. Sprawling 11 sequels, several novels, comic books, a television series, and a few video games, this film is not what we would call good. At this point in the letter is normally when the plot summary would go, but the crazy thing is, you already know it. For a movie that is so deeply inherently not great, it and its premise have become household pop culture knowledge. A bunch of horny teenage summer camp counselors are preparing before the campers arrive, and while they get high, have sex, and play Monopoly with each other, a serial killer stalks them from the woods one by one. They get killed off, and yada yada yada. You know exactly where this goes. I don't get it. Hopefully the rest of these get better. That's a joke. I know they don't. 5 out of 10.
Chris,
Yeah.
what's your history with Friday the 13th, part 1?
It's perhaps a movie I skipped over when I was a kid. When I was a kid, though, that this is the horror franchise that like got my attention more than any other ones.
Yeah, you look like it.
You know, I wasn't a very big Halloween fan. Wasn't a very big Nightmare on Elm Street fan. In fact, Nightmare on Elm Street, I remember seeing the first one, and it scared me so bad that I couldn't sleep alone. That one scared the fuck out of me.
I don't think I've ever seen any of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this one was scary as a child, but not so scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it being set in the woods, I think made it feel remote enough that it wasn't like I was going to bed like, oh, Jason might be here, you know. I know it's safe in the city. You know what I'm saying?
Your folks moved out to the sticks. And as an adult, you're like, I'm scared out here.
Yeah. But yeah, they're just fun. Even then, as a kid, I had fun with them. It was, you know, one of those things where, as silly as it is now, you know, just seeing people smoking weed or having sex, I was like, oh, this is what adults do, you know. It's just kind of fun, you know. It's almost like having older cousins or something like that, and like getting to hang around them, you know. So there was a lot of fun I had with it. What about you? I mean, as the letter states, I'm assuming you have a pop culture relationship to this more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can't remember. Have you and I seen this before together? Did we watch this first one?
I've seen this one more than I've seen any of the sequels.
Yeah, I just, like everybody else in the world, through osmosis, I know of these movies, and the fun fact of like it's not Frankenstein, it's Frankenstein's monster of this movie.
Scream.
Yeah, of this movie being like, no, it's the mom.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty much all I knew about this going into it. Again, I think we've talked about this before on the show, but I'd never been a big horror guy up to 5 years ago, and I got like super into it. And so these have always just been kind of under my radar. I do love Halloween, and when it comes to slashers, I think that's it. I can have fun with a lot of them. I did have a lot of fun with Halloween, and I'm hoping, Chris, I'm praying, I'm hoping, I'm wishing, however that song goes, I'm wishing, I'm hoping, I'm praying that I like these more as they go on.
Yeah.
Which so far, spoilers, we've watched 3. We're talking about 2 right now, but we watched up to 3.
Yeah.
I like each one more than I like the last.
I will say, for me, in terms of slashers, I genuinely would stand by and be like, okay, this is good. Would probably be Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween. I was just
going to say that, yeah.
And then I almost want to give an honorable mention to Nightmare on Elm Street just because it is so dreamy and inventive. Yeah. I think it's a very imaginative, and I have respect for the idea of like Wes Craven just hanging around and being like, what about a killer that could get you in your dreams, you know? And I think it invites a lot of fun, you know, concepts, like the idea of, you know, I like that series, perhaps we'll tackle it sometime, maybe next Halloween. But I do like the idea that like throughout the films, which you say you've not seen, it kind of slips into dream without letting you know until the scare comes, kind of a thing. I mean, you can kind of tell sometimes. But as they go on, they really go the route of, you know, something like Leprechaun or Child's Play, where it's no longer played for horror.
Yeah, my name is Freddy Krueger, and I'm here to say I love scaring people in a major way.
But yeah. I did interrupt you though, so if you want to continue.
Oh no, we watched this, and usually when we watch a movie that I know you like, I will try my absolute hardest to find something I like in it. Yeah, and I usually do. I can usually Chris, you're betting like 1,000%. I don't know how batting works, but you've got like a 99% hit ratio when it comes to movies that you like and are showing me. Yeah. And as much as I tried with this first Friday the 13th, I do not like this movie. Okay. There's not... the only thing I will give a thumbs up to is Tom Savini. Yeah. All the, like, what feels like almost practicing in your backyard ways of making special effects and, like, horror, like, just cool kills and stuff like that. Not to be Spike TV about it. Yeah. But, yeah, a lot of that's pretty impressive to see. And I think that's it. Like, I don't like any of the performances. I think the story is pretty boring. I think almost every scene in this movie is just mind-numbingly boring to me, and then someone gets stabbed, and then we move on. Yeah. I liked 2 more. We'll get to that. Yeah. And then, oh boy, I loved 3. But we'll get to that next week. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not super hot on this movie, unfortunately.
I'll start with a couple of things that I'm sure we'll touch base on as we continue to watch the films. First off, Wes Craven and Sean S. Cunningham. pretty decent friends, I suppose. They worked on things like The Last House on the Left together, as the Seasick, letter mentioned. Yes, basically what happened was Sean Cunningham, as Seasick said, was working in more of an independent capacity, independently released films. He really wanted to make a name for himself, and I think Friday the 13th is the perfect example of, not the perfect, I guess The Evil Dead probably would be, or even just Halloween, but Halloween kind of started it. Anyways, it's an example of post-Halloween directors taking advantage of the thing where it's like, okay, these are super cheap and I can immediately be like just blasted into the stratosphere. Did Sean Cunningham capitalize on it? No. Did Sam Raimi? Yes. So, like I said,
Sam Raimi made a good movie.
Yes.
And so did John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Like, that's my big thing
yeah.
about this movie is, like, Halloween, very cheap, which caused them to, I think in a lot of spots, be like, all right, not a lot can be happening in this movie.
Yeah.
So instead of big scary stabbings and people's eyeballs popping out, it's going to be slow and dramatic and tense.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, they had a lot of money and they're like, yeah, cool, we got Tom Savini, which is cool.
Yeah.
But they don't build up to the Tom Savini stuff that well at all.
Yeah.
And they kind of, it feels like they're kind of trying to take a page out of the Halloween book where it's like, okay, this will be a build up and slow and suspenseful. But instead of that, it is just boring.
Yeah.
Like, that 10 minutes straight where she makes coffee wrong, I blow my brains out. Like, I can't, it's so upsetting.
Yeah. So, in that, what I was talking about, though, is throughout the 80s, Paramount basically kept producing these because it was pretty much the backbone of their income.
Yeah.
They could spend between $1 million or $2 million on this and pretty much be guaranteed their money back tenfold. They spent $2 million on it, makes 20 to 30 million. I mean, that's just raw profit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like the most modern thing I feel like I can equate it to is the Saw movies. They don't do those anymore, but when they did, it used to be
or Paranormal Activity. Those ones only cost a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
The first one literally cost $10,000 before advertising, like just to shoot the thing. It was a $10,000 movie.
Yeah, and what was the catchphrase
For Saw or Paranormal Activity?
Saw.
Oh, I don't remember. I've actually never seen any Saw movies.
Like the trailers used to be like, if it's Halloween, it's Saw, because they would put a Saw every Halloween.
Yeah.
And I think from what I know about these movies, these Friday the 13th movies, I think they kind of go the same route that the Saw movies did, where they were just shitting out one a year.
Yeah, except for like 83 and 87 or something like that.
They become basically parodies of themselves, and while watching it, it feels like the people making this movie hate you for watching this movie. And so they're kind of just making fun of you, and the movies just get worse and worse as they go on. But you can find some kind of charm in it,
Yeah. So the first one, for example, cost $500,000, made $60,000 or $60 million. My bad, $60 million. Interesting about these movies, although often associated with Halloween and stuff like that, were pretty much across the board always released in the summer.
Strange. I mean, that makes sense. They're at summer camps.
Yeah. Sometimes as early as April, sometimes as late as August, but usually in the summer months. So anyways, right off the rip, to talk a bit about my opinion is to kind of say that I like and I don't like any of these movies. I agree with Siskel in the sense that, take, the kills out of whatever and it's empty movie. You could kind of say that a little bit almost about any slasher. Texas and Halloween might be a bit immune, but I don't know. Anyways, there's not a lot going on here. I don't particularly think the setting lends well to, something like Halloween or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where for some reason in those movies I feel a little invested. Like Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't really have anything going on, but also I don't want her to get murdered, Yeah. But there's something about the summer camp that doesn't really set up these characters to have me give a shit. Does that track at all? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, because I think there might be too many of them.
That is also true.
I could be wrong. I think there could be. I don't even remember how many kids there are in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
4 or 5, I think. There's a sister, 2 girls. I think there's like 5.
Okay, I feel like there's 11 kids in this movie. I could be wrong, but yeah, I feel like in Halloween it's and I don't want to just keep comparing this movie to Halloween, but I'm going to at every turn. Yeah, I think in Halloween you get the 2 babysitters, and then there are 2 friends that show up, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the setting of the summer camp could work really well if just a little bit more time and effort had been put into it.
Yeah.
Also, the dialogue in this movie is garbage. It's just so bad. I can't listen. Nobody says anything that I'm like, let alone, hey, I relate to you and I don't want you to die, but just so much like nobody talks like this.
Well, that's another thing. I guess another thing to bring up in terms of me not being invested is who in this film establishes what they do outside of being a camp counselor.
Nobody.
Because I'm just going to jump forward to the second movie for a split second. At least the one character is like, oh, I'm in grad school and I'm trying to be a child psychiatrist. Do I care that much? Probably more than these characters, but not significantly more, you know?
Yeah.
Anyways, I like and I don't like, obviously, like, in general, I like the woods. Woods are spooky, you know. There's a degree to which I'll get into it more, but, you know, very slight, like, I'm not saying Lynchian. I'm saying Twin Peaks vibes. Like anytime something's set in the woods and there's like diners and it just feels like a little slice of American pie, it just gives me like a little, you know, Twin Peaks vibes. One of my favorite things in this movie is that diner. It's raining really hard and there's just the big red letters that say diner. And there's just that lady who's like, you know, the guy got like a coffee and who knows, a slice of pie maybe. And he's like, how much owe you? And she's like, you don't owe me nothing, sweetheart. Just little things like that. There's a lot of like little stuff like that throughout this movie. Like I like how colorful it is. I like the decrepit town that's surrounding the camp.
I love your Doom guy.
Yeah, I do love Ralph. You're doomed, Ralph, gentlemen. So one of the things I do like about this movie is just aesthetically. I'm not saying it's, you know, the most beautiful film I've ever seen, but I do like it's very colorful. And there are I just like looking at it in a sense. Your brain's off and you're just looking.
No thoughts, just looking.
Just looking. I do sort of like the idea of the, you know, this folklore thing about this kid who died, yada, yada, yada. Everybody tells it around the campfire. It's a lot like the Michael Myers, like, oh, that's the Myers house. He killed his sister and his parent, you know, that kind of a thing.
It's great, but it almost feels like an afterthought.
Yeah.
That's just something I don't like about this movie is Miss Voorhees shows up for the last 10 minutes of it. And you see 2 camp counselors get killed in the 50s at the beginning. And I can't really remember if they talk much about that at all throughout this movie. Instead, they're just having the most awkward, oh, you landed on my boardwalk.
Yeah.
Now you got to give me your shoes. Aw, shucks, Susan. Just
And that's something that, you know, it needs saying is Halloween does a better job of that, of kind of like returning to the lore. In a sense, you have, you know, Loomis to do that for you. You don't necessarily need a Loomis character, but yes, for them to kind of like touch base with like where we're at with that plot would be nice from time to time. Because yes, it is empty and barely cohesive, but not in the, like, just in a narrative meat sense, you know? It really, really is just bare bones. There are the kids at this campground, and they're getting murdered, right? So I think it could have done for a little bit more of like touching base on, like, you know,
anything,
yeah. At the same time, I do kind of like the quality in this film of just kind of like the spacing out of the kills and how like everybody kind of gets killed without the other characters necessarily noticing. Like, while you're right, it is very boring and there are some boring scenes, I do like the boring in-between scenes, like where we've just seen one character get murdered in like the bathroom and then another girl goes in there to like get ready and like, you know, that's the killer's in there and is probably going to get this girl, you know. There's a couple of touches like that are all right.
Here's something that bothered me throughout this whole movie. No way in hell. No goddamn way.
Yeah.
11 kids or how many there are.
Yeah.
Go to this camp.
And
every last one of them brings a raincoat? Like that was I've never seen so many raincoats in my life. And I
do
don't know.
like them though, the yellows and the reds.
I
and the
do,
blue.
but it was just so weird to me. Like everybody would walk in and be like, "Oh, before I leave, I gotta grab my raincoat." Like even when it's not raining, it's like I don't know why. It just took me out of the movie.
Yeah. So we opened in 1958 or whatever. Camp counselors sitting around the fire talking about the Jason shit, I think. Or no, I think they're just singing songs. I think they're singing like Tom Dooley. They're not talking about Jason. That happens in other films. A couple of them go to Nick up in the attic. I do love, again, like it's just the slice of Americana thing. Like just them wearing their little button-up shirts tucked in their little shorts.
Their matching outfits.
Their little belts and stuff.
Uniforms, as they're called.
Yes. And, we find out later, but Pamela Voorhees or whatever kills them. Jump forward to modern day, and there's a guy, I think, named Christy, who is opening the camp again. He's having his counselors come into town. I think the first one we kind of meet is the hitchhiking one who wanders through the little decrepit town into, again, something I just love. I love the little scene with the counter in the general store where she walks in and says she's going to Camp Crystal Lake, and everyone looks at her like she's a fucking maniac.
Yeah, I do love it. You're right, in movies. I do love little small town stuff like that, where everybody at the diner knows each other and stuff like that. I don't know if that exists in the real world as much, or like to that extent, really.
At least not now.
I mean, it might, just in places we don't live. And every time I see it in a movie, I'm like, that'd be nice. I would love that. And then I think about it for a minute, and I'm like, no, I wouldn't be into that.
But basically, a truck driver gives her a ride to the camp, or at least to the crossroads close to the camp. This scene was shot with neither of them together.
That's fun.
So, but anyways, I do like the little thing where they're just going back and forth, where he's like, yeah, you're an idiot, kid drowned there, a couple people got murdered, you guys are gonna get murdered too.
Does he say that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And she's like, come on, I'm just working a summer job or whatever. And he's like, you're just a dumb kid. And she's like, yeah, well, at least I don't believe in ghosts. And he kind of like looks at her and smiles, and then drops her off. I believe we also meet Ralph at this point, who's just an old man who apparently has a wife. But
that's right.
But he also just bicycles all over the place, just going, "You're doomed. If you and your friends stay, you'll all die."
I do love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I love the little touch that he rides a bike everywhere, because there's no way this man has a driver's license.
And also, supposedly, he's a drunk. But anyways, we go to the camp. We meet Kevin Bacon, as well as a couple of women and a comic relief character. And we meet Mr. Christie, who looks like our friend Elton. He's chopping.
Oh, he really does.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's trying to get a little stump out of the ground, and has all of the camp counselors who just show up help him. Alice, we meet as well. I'm going to jump ahead and just mark this as my least favorite scene in the whole film. The one where they're having like the awkward, sexy back and forth while they're fixing the gutter, and he's like trying to like convince her to not go and to stay, and he's like touching her face, and there's like the sexual undertone that like they kind of have a little bit of a thing. I just don't like it.
I don't even remember this.
Yeah, it happens pretty early. But anyways, so that's going down as my least favorite. Anyways, from there, I don't know, there's just fucking around. Like they're down at the archery range, and the one guy who is the comic relief character fires an arrow too close to a woman.
Crazy dangerous.
Must have been a dangerous thing to shoot, too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's crazy dangerous two ways, for this to happen in a movie and for
them to
be filmed in a movie. Yeah.
Well, here's another thing. There were no stunt men or anything on location.
They're just shooting arrows at kids.
They did not have the budget, and so everybody in this film did their own stunts. Also, one of these kids is Harry Crosby, Bing Crosby's nephew.
Fun fact.
Yeah, today he is an investment banker.
Fun fact.
Yeah. I think we cut back to our little hitchhiking friend who was just getting a ride from the semi-truck driver, and she gets picked up by Pamela Voorhees, narrowly escapes, and then ultimately gets murdered by Pamela. Anyways, there's some other stuff, like there's a snake in one of the cabins, and the kid has to chop it with a machete, and all kinds of stuff like that happens.
Yeah, that part was a bummer. You see a real snake get chopped up by a real shovel.
Yeah.
Hated it.
Anyways, here's another one of my favorite things about these movies. I like that it persists throughout all of them. Thunderstorm rolls in. Christy goes into town to go to that diner. One of my favorite. Just looks so good on screen. The big red diner in that rain. Just so good.
I do like it, but it happens a lot in this movie, this kind of problem. But I do love watching like a 70s or 80s movie blown up into 1080.
Yeah.
And you can see shit that you're not supposed to see because they're like, no one will ever fucking notice it.
Yeah.
But I love in old movies where you can very clearly see a rain machine and the rain in the scene is panning from left to right.
Yeah.
Or just little stuff like when Kevin Bacon gets stabbed through the neck, his neck is 4 shades lighter than the rest of his face.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems with that effect is they didn't make the flesh tone red enough. Like his face is flush.
Yeah, and I'm sure
very red.
And I'm sure when it was like in theaters, it looked fine, and then when you watched it on your VHS player or even on a DVD, it probably looks fine.
Yeah. But from here, a rain kind of rolls in, and one of the Kevin Bacon's like girlfriend gives this weird, odd, description of this dream she has where it starts raining blood and yada yada yada. There's a lot of blood talk, camp blood, dreams of blood, all kinds of shit like that. Whatever. They go off into a cabin to make sex. They do make sex. Other stuff happens, but we'll just cut to the chase. She goes off to the bathroom and gets murdered. Like I said, I do like the scene with her going in there and knowing that there's a killer in there, and another girl I think gets killed in there, or at least is a little stalked in there. Whatever.
Also,
Kevin Bacon.
Every girl in this movie, and I think the next one, it's raining like crazy. They just made sex. They're like, I'm gonna go run to my car or another cabin or the bathroom. I'm gonna put on my raincoat, no pants for some reason.
Yeah.
I gotta hike a mile to this outhouse, no pants. Hey, you're gonna catch your death out there. Literally. I mean, not by like the knife way, but it's raining. It's cold.
Yeah.
Put on some pants.
Some of the other camp counselors are playing strip Monopoly.
Not a thing.
Not a thing, but I do like the character who proposes it. Her name is Brenda, and she's bookish. She wears like a nightgown and carries a candle holder when the light's off, and reads books and comes up with things like strip Monopoly. She's fun. I like Brenda. Brenda's my favorite character.
Brenda's a good time, yeah.
Yeah, I really like Brenda.
I think Brenda's my favorite character as well.
Okay. Well, we're gonna retouch on that. I have a list here of Friday the 13th questions to ask you about each movie, but they do the strip poker thing, or not poker, Monopoly. Long story short, slowly everybody gets murdered. We do also see, I like Alice, our main character, getting left there, and then there's that boy that comes in, and she's like, hey, something weird's going on. I saw the lights down by the archery range come on and stuff like that, and she sent that boy off. That boy gets murdered. She's the last one, right? She's the sole survivor. And then we have, like, Christy trying to come home to the camp, and his car breaks down, and the cop gives him a ride, but then gets a call about like an emergency draw of the life situation. He's like, hey, I gotta drop you off. He drops him off, and Christy walks the rest of the way, bumps into Pamela Voorhees, gets murdered.
We missed my absolute favorite.
I know,
character.
we're gonna backtrack to it.
Okay.
I do like this scene. I like it's a POV of him, and like you get the sense, or not of him, but of Pamela Voorhees, and you get the sense right before he dies that he kind of knows her a little bit, because he goes like, oh, hey, what are you doing out here? Again, really wish they would have like played up that a little more, like, Pamela Voorhees would have been around a little more, but
or at all.
What are you gonna do? Let's go to backtrack now that I've mentioned cops to the scene where the cop shows up.
Shows up at the camp.
Yeah.
Comic relief kid's doing a racist thing with like an Indian headdress on or whatever, and he comes up, he's like, you kids high or whatever, and Kevin Bacon comes out just clearly very high. Nah, man, and like touching his motorcycle and stuff. He's like, fucking knock it off. And he's just like giving these kids the rub. And I don't know why, can't tell you. This cop, my favorite guy in the whole movie. He's a motorcycle cop, and he's kind of dweeby, but like thinks he's like carries himself like he's cool.
Yeah. Thinks he's hot shit for sure.
Thinks he's hot shit for sure. And he's like, you kids keep your fucking noses clean or whatever. And then he goes to leave, and he like drives forward, and like I think the idea was he was supposed to do like a cool spin around with the bike, but it's like kind of this like stop, stutter, kind of like almost falls off of it kind of thing. Don't know if that was intentional for the movie or not. Yeah. But it made me laugh.
And that's pretty much the roundup of the movie to that point, I think. From here, you get the big final chase. Not one of my favorites necessarily. I think there are better final chases as this series of movies goes on. But basically, we get the reveal of Pamela. They fight a little bit. They end up on the beach. And yes, Alice chops her head off with a machete. And Then we get my personal favorite scene of the movie. She rows out into the woods, and my partner brought it up. I've been saying it for a long time.
She rows out into the lake.
What'd I say?
The woods.
Oh yeah, my bad.
She's on a canoe and just she's trying to get it into the woods.
But this last little bit, kind of like proto, like kind of Twin Peaksy vibes. You get kind of like a Twin Peaksy kind of soundtrack.
Yeah.
You get the woods, woman in trouble. She's kind of laying there, whatever. The cops show up, and she kind of looks at them very whimsically, as if, she's in no rush. She's just, kind of comforted by the sight of the cops, and then out of nowhere, presumably Jason grabs her, pulls her into the lake. Great way to end this movie. It's something that Cinemassacre's James Ralph also mentioned. Obviously fade to black there and send everybody home on a scare, but they don't. Instead, they have to cut to the hospital and do that whole thing with what about the boy Jason? And the cops like, well, ma'am, we dragged that lake, we didn't find no boy. And then the credits roll. I do,
however, like the little shot of back to the lake, and it's just the water. I don't know how they did it. Maybe they just got lucky, but it's just the water. It's really still, and just like one air bubble comes up, and maybe another one over here. Like, oh, something's down there. It's good. It's spooky.
Yeah.
I will. I keep talking about what you were talking about. I just thought of something that I meant to tell you about. And I forgot, and now we're going to look it up. So, Vamp.
Well, at this point, I'm pretty much at my Friday the 13th, question list. So.
Oh, okay. Well, hold on.
Yeah.
Brief pause then. All right. Do you know who Ari Lehman is?
Nope.
He is the kid. He's 60 now, so he's no longer a kid. But he's the guy that played Jason when he comes out of the lake. And a very long time ago, I just stumbled upon his Instagram.
Yeah.
He's a heavy metal musician now.
Okay.
He looks like this.
All right.
His Instagram name is firstjason13.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to guess what his band's name is?
Probably something like Jason and the Voorhees.
Nope. Just First Jason.
Oh, okay.
And their whole motif is that he was the first Jason, and they use like pictures of the hockey mask and stuff like that. And
okay.
it's just strange.
It's odd.
Just strange, yeah.
All right, here's my Friday the 13th corner. This one's a little tricky. Jason isn't in the movie much, but specifically the design of him as a child, and maybe Pamela Voorhees as a villain. Jason's drip.
I'd say 10 out of 10 because he's wet, so he's dripping the whole time.
No, you like the way the kid looks, I suppose. Is that a good design for the mysterious boy of the lake?
Yeah.
Yeah, you like that? I think this is my favorite. Later on in the series, they'll show him in like little visions, and he's always odd. Even like in Jason Takes Manhattan, I think he's portrayed as like a not deformed child, and I think that makes it a little less, like with the folklore. I just feel like kids always play it up, like they'd be like, oh, he was weird, and he was like the Elephant Man or something. That's why nobody liked him,
Yeah, I that's a great question. I don't know how I feel about him looking like the Elephant Man. Like, I guess I like it and it makes sense, but like, I don't know. Like, it's like with this, the side of his head is so big, and the next one, the side of his head is so big, and then as the movies go on, he's got an egg-shaped head that fits into a hockey mask. It's just a strange, and I want more continuity. Damn it.
Yeah, it is odd. Like I said, I do have there's a point of contention, like to make someone who's different like a villain kind of a thing. But like I said, for the background of it being like a children's tale that kind of inadvertently comes to life, I think that tracks with, of course, he would be like, and I think the child design looks great. I also do like Pamela Voorhees. That's a great actress.
Oh yeah,
she just looks menacing. She sounds menacing.
Absolutely,
great sweater choice. Again, just wish there would have been more of her.
But also her and Alice, the main girl, rolling around punching each other.
Yeah,
just looks dumb. Just like silly.
What about Pamela Voorhees? You're agreeing. You're saying,
yeah, she's cool.
Looks good. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. She's spooky.
Just for the sake of it, you wanna give it like a. Nah, we'll just cut that a little bit. All right, number 2, vibes.
Vibes.
Just the general atmosphere of the movie. The like I said, the look, the cabins. This is a good campground. You like these, set pieces, the way the interiors, the cabins look, that kind of a thing. Is a good, is this a good vibe? You like the vibes of this?
No.
Aesthetically, no?
No, none of it feels consistent to me. Some
Yeah.
of these cabins look like homes, and some of them look like shacks.
Okay.
And, yeah, I don't know. None of this movie really gels to me, and, like, none of it's... I didn't really notice any of that at all. Like,
Okay.
yeah.
My next question doesn't work because we've only discussed one so far, so we'll talk about it in a second. It's just ranking overall, so it's one item list at this point. Again, we've discussed you don't like it. There's a lot of things I don't like, a lot of characters I don't care for. You have also answered already, but for the sake of having these sections, go ahead and answer again. Favorite character?
Favorite character, girl that gets shot with an arrow.
Shot with an arrow. Is that how Brenda dies?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I believe so.
Yeah, okay. In this movie specifically, we're talking about where he shows up. I know it's a dream, but whatever. How bad Jason be stankin'? That looked like a stanky Jason.
He looked like a stanky Jason, but he also, I don't know. He has that lake stank.
Yeah,
Which
you think
is
he just smell like stank?
It's
Lake
stank, but also at the same time, a lake stank ain't that bad of a stank.
Yeah.
I think, if I'm remembering the stink of a lake right. You know, I mean, it smells like a fish probably, which is bad, but it could be way worse.
Favorite scare?
Favorite scare? Him coming out of the lake.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. That's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it's good.
Really could have
I
been
knew
a-
it was coming, but
Yeah. No, I just think it's good. I think even knowing, it's still like, yep, that's just classic.
yeah,
Yeah. I think that's the one thing the movie really nails is that
absolutely.
10 seconds. That's the only thing really worthwhile. I think the whole thing is like, there you go.
And then they immediately piss all over it by having
They
her
do.
in the hospital.
Which kind of lends into the next. I'm assuming, I'm asking just best and worst. Your best, I'm assuming, is the Jason coming out of the lake.
Mm-hmm.
It's also my best. I've already mentioned my worst, which is the weird sexual tension kind of scene between Christy and Alice with his shirt off while they're fixing the gutters. I just don't like that scene. What's your worst?
The strip Monopoly scene.
Strip Monopoly?
It's the most boring thing I've ever seen. It's like even while they're taking their clothes off, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm going to fall asleep right now. I can't. Like it's just it listen to just how bad all the dialogue is and all the actors are in this movie. It is just the most stale thing I've like. It feels like I'm watching people play checkers
Yeah.
inside of the civic center of a church. Like it's just like a drool is coming out of my mouth. I'm so bored.
What are you giving this movie?
What am I giving this movie?
Yeah.
I'm giving this movie a D.
Okay.
Solid D.
Solid D. I went C+. Just the last couple of roundup things. At the end of the day, I'm not saying they nailed it or it's like a something to be applauded. But I do like it. The twist being that it's like his mom, although it's not.
It's not bad.
Yeah. Motivation. The revenge of the son thing. And I think I'm probably gonna give this one a C+.
Okay.
Because this is one, like I said, I don't put it up there with like Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but like it's usually the one that, as I said before, for vibes, I just kind of like, the same way that, some people really like foggy cemeteries and stuff. As I've mentioned, I don't really give a shit about summer camps just in general. I don't. But like I said, there is something about how colorful this one is and just the slice of Americana scenes, like the little, lunch table in the town and the diner in the rain and stuff like that, and the yellow raincoats. They're just things about this that just, I like. But overall, this is obviously a cheap, cash grab movie.
Yep.
It's not really of any value. And I don't think there's anything more to say about part one. Cut to part two.
Now we're going to talk about part two. Meanwhile, between that cut right there, Chris took a work phone call. I took a shower, and now Elton's here.
Hey, how's it going?
Part two. What can be said about part two?
Probably someone had written you a letter.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me check my email real quick. Friday the 13th, part two. Looks like this thing was made in... Well, it doesn't say off the top of it. Hey, it's me again. Remember the last time we spoke and I said Paramount and Warner Brothers saw the success of Halloween and said, hey, let's do that but worse and make a lot of cash. Well, they did it twice. Friday the 13th came out, made about $60 million, and the production company said, again, do it again, now, right now, go, stop talking to me and make another Friday the 13th movie right now. We've already started filming it and it comes out next week. Hurry up. So 357 days, that's less than a year, later, Friday the 13th Part 2 was released in theaters. Would I say this film was rushed? Yes. Would I say it feels that way? Yes. And so would you. The first 15 minutes of this thing are the last 15 minutes of the previous film, and the climax ends with the killer grabbing our protagonist, a fade to white, then a shot of our main character being placed into the back of an ambulance. Like they forgot to film that section or ran out of time? I don't know. I'm just so confused. And also, it's not even 90 minutes long. I like it more than the first one. 5.5 out of 10. Cowboy face emoji.
This movie's buck wild, Chris.
Yeah?
It's just the same movie again from the last one, except they're on the other side of the lake. There's a shit ton more kids who end up leaving before anything starts happening. And they forgot to shoot the end of it. I can't stress that enough. Chris, what's your experience with Friday the 13th Part 2?
I saw it, and it is one of the ones that ends up being forgettable for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely forgettable.
What about you, Eldon?
I've seen the last 10 minutes or so in Friday the 13th Part 3, and that's my experience with it.
Okay, cool.
What's your experience with it?
I watched it 2 days ago. The end.
But yeah, the letter, yes, this movie and the movie series does do this often, the first 5, 10, 15 minutes, just depending on which entry.
And it's crazy because I love when Rocky does it.
Yeah.
I hate it when these movies do it.
Will be a recap, and then after that, we are in Alice's apartment. I believe she shot for like one day.
Yes.
Didn't even get the script beforehand. Like, got the dialogue on set, or maybe had to improv the dialogue, whatever.
She's having a dream, which is a flashback, which I don't think has ever happened to a human being, ever.
She talks to her mom on the phone or whatever. Basically, Jason Voorhees is here and kills her.
Yeah, her mom's like, why don't you come home and stay with us? And she's like, I'm doing fine. Plus, I'm just going to wake you up with all the screaming I'm doing constantly.
Is she supposed to be close to Camp Crystal Lake, or did Jason just travel?
That's a great question. He got on a bus.
Yeah. It reminds me of Halloween, when Mr. Halloween goes all the way to California to get his sister.
Or in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, where most of that movie is him walking through a field.
Yeah. Anyways, then we get, I assume, the credits, yada, 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 whatever. Flash to our new group. So there's a new camp across the lake. They're training counselors.
Yes.
Yeah. They're not even opening a camp or like that. This is just a training facility for counselors. And there's a guy who runs this thing.
He's the adult.
He's the adult, I guess.
His assistant is his girlfriend.
Who's not supposed to be, because she's like one of his proteges.
Yeah, she's his employee. They should not be dating, correct?
She shows up late. He's pissed about this. She drops that she's in grad school and is a child psychologist to be. Then from there, they do a couple of whatevers, like jogging or just kind of having fun or whatever.
Oh, yeah. They're all just hanging out.
Yeah.
A girl gets slingshotted in the butt with a rock.
Yes, there's a pervy character who does pervy things like that.
And
yes.
he is
thirsty.
He's thirsty, but also he's like the handsome one.
Mm-hmm.
And he like, hold on, I'm going to pull up a picture of this guy for you.
Is he the one who was doing the handstands?
No,
that's another movie.
Friday. His name better be Chad. He's definitely a Chad.
I did not spell that right. Yeah, I got no idea what this guy's name is. He's not showing up on IMDb. Is he Scott? Yeah, he's Scott. Yeah, Mark's the one in the wheelchair. Scott. Images. This is him, Elton.
Ooh.
And I would say this guy's so handsome, he's ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he's so, like, symmetrical, and his eyes are so blue, and he's got that mouth, and he's just hard to look at. Right?
Hard to look at.
Yeah. There's just something off about him.
Something off about him. He kind of looks like he looks like a TV portrayal of a serial killer.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a way. Too perfect.
He looks like off-brand. What is his name? He's Cyclops. He's in Sonic. He's in Enchanted. You know who I'm talking about? Okay.
Well, anyways, after a little while of fucking around,
Yes.
Thank you.
I do know who you're talking
Thank
about.
you.
I don't know his name yet.
after a little while of fucking around, I think there's a couple of characters. One who wears that like, oh yeah, let's go back to the town. There's the guy who wears like the Jamie Heineman hat.
The like Newsies hat, yeah,
Yeah. And
It's a beret, isn't it?
whatever.
kinda. No,
I
it's somehow worse than
I
that.
think AAA wore
James
something like
Marston. That's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
that. Okay. Anyways, his truck gets like towed, but it's a prank. Whatever. Flash forward.
Get pranked, yeah.
His girlfriend, who, by the way, apparently lied about her age. She was 17. They filmed nude scenes with her. Then they found out how old she was and destroyed the footage.
Such a funny way to say that. Destroyed the footage.
She becomes enamored with the idea of Camp Crystal Lake. They've already been advised by the guy who runs this training camp, like, don't go there. And she's like, we're going there.
They
go
also
there.
all run into "You're doomed, man."
Yes,
whose
Ralph
name-
is back. Also,
Ralph
this
is
is
back.
5 years later.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that's something else worth saying. They wander out of the camp, get arrested by the cops. The cops bring him back to the camp. I do like this scene. It's funny enough where he's like, like punish these kids. Or whatever. He's like, Shelly, no seconds on desserts for these two. That's
yeah,
fine.
I do like this scene because the cop is, I hate to say it, cop is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, listen, I got to keep kids out of that spooky haunted camp. Please keep your kids out of there. And this camp counselor, for some reason,
It's just
is
like ACAB bitch.
fuck
I'm
the
not,
police.
yeah.
I am not dealing with this guy. And it's great. I love it.
I do like it.
And then the cop is leaving, sees a Bigfoot-esque shadow run across the street into the woods. Exactly. And chases after him. And this might be my favorite part of the movie. Because,
Him scurrying across the road.
because this actor who plays the police officer
Did not know the role required running.
has never run before in his life. My theory is they hired this guy, they auditioned him, thought, yeah, good actor, good enough actor. I think he can do these scenes. Let's hire him. Came in, did all of his scenes, were great. Now we're going to do the running stuff. And they
He's
saw
like, well,
him.
wait, so what happened?
They saw him running, and everyone's like, ah, shit. All right.
We literally don't have time.
Yeah.
This
And
movie
then-
comes out in less than a year.
And then he dies, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, he stumbles into the shack. You love Jason's shack.
Oh, my God. Jason has a shack in the middle of the woods, and
Yeah.
it's my favorite thing. It's so impressive that it's made out of garbage.
Yeah, what size is it?
It's like the size of this house,
Oh, really? Wow.
but made out of just like
sheet metal
Yeah, that
and
he-
like tarp.
yeah,
Oh.
it's huge.
Yeah.
And it's great. And my favorite, I lied. This is my favorite part of the
I
movie.
love that he got a toilet.
Yeah, he's
But
got
he
a
worked
toilet.
out no kind of system. It's like just, it has water in it.
Composting
Yeah.
toilet. He's got a composting toilet.
Our main character, protagonist at the end, whatever her name is, the camp counselor's girlfriend, she's running through the woods after seeing Jason kill a bunch of people, and she runs along, she stumbles onto his shack in the middle of the woods and goes, help, somebody in there, help me. And it's like, obviously this is his home. No one besides a boy beast would live in here.
Yeah. Yeah. Her name is Ginny Field. Ginny?
Whoa.
Jenny Field?
Ginny.
Ginny.
Anyway,
Anyways.
JD calls him a boy beast at the bar earlier. It made me laugh.
Yeah. So yeah, basically that's kind of what happens is a couple of them fuck off to the bar. A couple of them stay home. Mark has a lady, don't know her name. She's thirsty too.
She's
She's really trying to bang Mark. Doctors say Mark's never going to walk again, but Mark says, I'm not spending the rest of my life in this chair. Great guy. I like this Mark guy.
Yeah.
And I like the love interest, the girl that wants to bang him. That's my favorite character. I like her a lot.
Yeah, she's great. She's not my favorite character. She's so horny, and she's like, we're gonna play this like handheld football game
Yeah.
to fuck. And I don't know. She's like, we're gonna play for position or whatever.
Yeah.
And they just have that conversation for about 20 minutes, where he's like, "Are you saying what I'm thinking you're saying?" And she's like, "I would like to have sex with you after we play this football game." And he's like, "Are you getting at what I'm thinking we're getting at?" And she's like, "I'm gonna have sex with you in your wheelchair after we play this football game." And he's like, "Oh," and he's like, "Awooga," and then they're talking, and she's like, "Oh, also, can you do sex?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, no, everything that's supposed to work works." And she's like, "Okay, cool." And he's like, "I'm not gonna be. The doctors say I'm gonna be in this wheelchair for the rest of my life, but I disagree. I'm getting out of this one day." And then 2 minutes later, Jason shows up and proves his doctor's right. He died in that wheelchair. It's
That's
a
true.
bummer.
So basically, another thing worth mentioning is there's a guy in there. I think his name's like Stu Charno or Cherno or some shit like that. He's in an episode of the X-Files. If you like the X-Files, it's Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose. Do I like him? Not that much.
I like him in this movie.
Cool.
He's the redhead guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
He's okay.
a girl loses her dog because she brought a dog here for some reason
She
named
did.
Muffin.
She did.
Um,
She did.
You said there's a bad guy that's not Jason?
No.
No.
Oh, sorry. I'm hearing things.
And I don't know, the kids just fuck around for a while, and then Jason
Yeah.
shows up with a sack over his head and starts just chopping them up.
Yeah, basically. Stu Charno, whatever, avoids all this, as well as with the extras, but who cares about them? But yeah, Stu Charno lives this just because he's slamming just 24 Rolling Rocks.
Yeah, more
He's
than-
got a lot of beers on that table.
Yeah, more than half of the 30 counselors leave to go to the bar.
Yeah.
And then 6 of them stay behind, including Stu.
Yeah, anyways, long story short, they all get murdered.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just how it would be sometimes, I guess.
She shows up at his shack in the middle of the woods, sees his dead mom's head.
She
on a
pretends to be his
pedestal
mom because she's
next to
got
a
all those
sweater.
child psychology smarts.
So she puts a sweater on and goes, Jason, mommy says no.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, geez, okay. And then he
Yeah.
like kneels down because she tells him to, and she's going to slice him up.
Yeah,
And
and
then
I'm 50-50 on the sweater thing. Like, it's such a big part of the series, you know.
The sweater, yeah.
No, just this thing. Like, this is a big part, like her outsmarting Jason like that.
Yeah.
And I do like that that's usually how the ending goes, is that they outsmart him to some degree. And it does give it like a Dracula kind of a, you know, like mythology.
I mean,
in
I
a sense.
guess, but I also feel like he's dumb as hell. He's a boy beast, so I don't think he's very smart.
No. But just this thing with the artifacts and the relics and like using them the way you would like some kind of book or something, or like a dagger or something. It's like I said, I'm 50-50 on it.
Works real good for the video game.
Yeah. Anyways,
They knew.
yeah, there's all kinds of chasing that happens. This chase, the most notable thing is that she's hiding under a bed and a rat makes her piss, and that's what gives away her look to
Yeah,
Mr.
that's
to
true,
Mr.
that happens.
Jason. She thinks he's gone, but really he's standing on a chair and he's about to pitchfork her, but his weight makes the chair break and he falls. She also kicks him in the balls at one point.
Yeah, he's chasing her through the woods, and it's so strange because it's a montage of him chasing her, and then cuts to the moon, and then cuts back to them chasing, and then like fades to like the lake, and then fades. Because in my heart of hearts, much like the fade to white ending in this movie, I bet you they shot a bunch of that of them running through the woods, and then got back to the editing bay where we're like, oh, none of this connects. There's no cohesion. There's no beginning, middle, or end to this
Yeah.
chase. So it's a montage.
Yeah. Anything else? I mean, there's a storm that happens just like the first one. At the end of it, how does she get Jason? How does she get him?
He's attacking her boyfriend, and she gets him with a cleaver in the arm.
In the arm.
And then they run back to their cabin.
Yeah.
And then, everything's fine. And then, so there's a rustling at the door. And so they take the pitchfork and break it in half. And she's sitting there with the pitchfork ready to stab, and he's got the handle of the pitchfork ready to club, I guess. And he opens the door, and it's the girl's dog that was lost earlier. And then Jason busts in through the window and grabs her. And then it
Which I
fades to
think
white.
the idea here is, I've read that this is debated whether this is a dream sequence or not. This part. It's supposed to be like recreating the lake thing, but different.
If you don't give this movie that much credit. Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess they kind of do tell you that at the end of the beginning of the next one, because they do the same thing in part 3, but then they put new footage in there where you see him get up and take the thing out of his arm. So I guess you're right. I guess that didn't happen.
Yeah. And then it just kind of, like you said, fades to white, and she's in the back of a little, ambulance. And that's kind of credits.
Yeah.
The first movie has like a 60, 63 on Rotten Tomatoes, something like that. This one has a 29.
Mm-hmm.
This one is not that good. Do you have anything to say before I move on to my Friday the 13th corner?
It's just as bad when it comes to dialogue and character as the first one, but I like these actors just a little bit more, so they kind of make up for it for me. I like these kids way more than I like the last kids.
Yeah, I'll say that. Like I said, I like Mark and his love interest. Janie Heineman.
Not happy that...
not so much.
I hate that guy. I'm not happy that...
Ralph bit the dust?
Ralph bit the dust. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, that sucked.
Ralph should have stuck around even longer.
Yeah, Ralph should be the... That's what I'm looking for. Ralph should be the Jamie Lee Curtis of the series.
Yeah, always coming back.
He should always be coming back.
Also, something that was pointed out to me at a certain point by somebody somewhere out there in some kind of retrospective on some YouTube video. First time they meet Ralph at the camp, he's like hiding in the pantry, like in a closet. And then when they find his dead body, he's in a pantry closet. So.
Yeah.
Anyways, right off the rip, how's Jason's drip?
Great. Love it. Love the sack hood.
Yeah, you
love
like
the
the
one
sack?
eye. Great.
Yeah.
I love when he takes it off and he looks exactly like Sloth.
This also predates Sloth a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Wearing that big old overall, blue jean with some flannel. You know, really looking like a man of the woods.
It's good. Love it. Love
Yeah.
the pitchfork. It's all a good look.
Yeah. I'm kind of 50-50 on it, just like the whole movie. It's a nice transitory look. I like it, and the progression. Like, you know, there's always debate of like the whole thing where it's like, you know, is he alive? Is he a man? I think I fall in the category where up until the fourth movie, he's probably some kind of alive man who just
Some
lives
kind
as a
of boy beast.
You love that.
I love boy beast. Yeah.
Yeah. And then at that point, he legitimately does die. There's a movie where he's brought back to life, and from then on, he has more of his like supernatural strength, supernatural, you know, like teleporting abilities, and he's very much so like a zombie at that point, or a deadite, as the ninth film kind of solidifies as what Jason
don't
is.
Spoil it for me.
Sorry. Anyways, how about vibes? Just the camp, the look of the camp, rainy.
Don't love it, but I
bar.
like it more than the last one.
Yeah,
Somehow, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
like it a little less. I do like that one big house. We really only get the one big house, I feel like, in this one, right? I mean, there's some outhouse shit,
There's a bar.
and I think they go to their little cabins a little bit. But you got that big main house. I don't know if I like it more than the first big main house, but yeah,
In my mind, they're the exact same.
yeah.
Yeah.
Overall ranking.
I'm putting this at number 1, baby.
Yeah. Well, to go back to the all the same. This one, it's like might be. I think it's like 2 stories. It's got like white finish with like a blue building. The other one's just like straight up like Evil Dead cabin
Okay.
in the first one. Anyways, favorite character in this one.
My favorite character in this is probably, I'm looking at the cast list right now, Terry.
Is she the one that likes Mark?
She's the one with the Mickey Mouse shirt. That gets shot in the butt.
I like the one. We totally glazed over the fact that there's a point where she's like, "I'm going on a walk, you guys. Dead ass night, dead ass in the middle of the forest.
Oh, yeah, insane.
Dead ass, not a walk. She just went down to the lake, took all her clothes off, and skinny dipped alone at night in the woods.
Yeah, and then looked for her dog that she brought for some reason.
The hell? Of what I said, does any of it sound like something you could do alone?
No, not at all. And like, yeah,
Night in the woods?
here's my big thing with these movies so far. Do you know why Terry's my favorite character?
What?
Because I think she's cute, and that's it. That's all anyone in this movie has going for them, because they're not people. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I guess I like Terry the best.
Yeah.
Nope, I take it back. You know who I like the most?
Huh.
The guy who's in the X-Files. The redhead guy.
Stu Chardo.
I liked Stu. I think Stu's a lot of fun.
Smart guy.
There's that part where he's at the bar and the bartender walks up to him and he takes the 2 beer bottles and puts them over his eyes
Yeah.
like they're goggles. That's fun.
Or when he talks to that suave old man about if there's any after hours bars around here.
Yes.
That
And the guy
is-
goes, yes. And he goes, and walks away without finding out
Another
where the clubs
moment
are.
to me that's very Twin Peaksy.
Yeah.
Because no, there's not a fucking after hours bar in the town where Camp Crystal Lake happens.
You are at the bar
Yeah, that is the bar.
/ casino. This is-
Also, why is this guy dressed in like? From what I remember, he's in like tails. He's in like
yeah, in my mind, he's got like a fancy walking cane with him.
yeah. So that's going in my book as number 2 Twin Peaksy moment in the series so far. Yeah, how bad Jason be stanking?
Jason be stanking real bad.
You think so?
Jason is a boy beast who lives in the woods in this weird shack with a toilet that doesn't flush.
Yeah, I'm saying there's a chance he's stankier than lake floor.
Oh, for sure. He's wearing
Yeah.
overalls and like a thermal flannel button up and
Yeah.
a sack over his head.
Yeah, he's stanking.
That boy's
Does he
stinking.
swim frequently though?
I don't know.
Doesn't seem like so far, but later in the series we do see him in the water a lot more.
That's what I'm saying.
He's either like traumatized by the water, or he just loves getting out there. It just seems like home to him. It's one of those.
Yeah, somewhere in the middle. Favorite scare?
Favorite scare?
Yeah.
Chris, can't think of any.
Neither can I.
Can't think of a single one that happens in this movie.
No? I mean, Mark gets the machete in the head and then falls down the stairs like The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
I like that shot enough. I might put that at my best just for lack of there being another one. I might even, as gross as it sounds, put the pissin' to give away your loke scene at the best, just because that's something I've never seen anywhere else.
Yeah, I remember.
If I was that scared, I might piss too.
I think mine is when she gets to Jason's cabin. She's looking around and realizes, oh fuck, this is where Boy Beast lives.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh god, and she's walking around and she walks by one of the quote unquote windows that are in there, and you can just see him on the other side of the forest just sprinting towards her. And it's not like they cut to a shot of that, like you just naturally see it out of the window.
That is good.
It's great. I like it.
Yeah. What about worst? What's the bottom, like just the worst thing in this movie?
The dog.
The dog?
The dog. Yeah. When they open up the door and it's the dog.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. For me, a lot of this ends up being pretty forgettable.
Also, back to her walking out in the woods by herself at night. One, she lets her dog go just out into the woods and doesn't really care about finding them.
Yeah.
And then also walks in the woods alone at night. They spend a very long time at the beginning of this movie telling all the counselors, hey, y'all, this is bear country.
Yeah.
Watch out for bears. You can't wear cologne or perfume because we got bears out here. Is this a bad place to keep kids? Yeah, for sure. This is bear country.
I'm going to retroactively put Friday the 13th maybe more in the D category, I think.
Good. Bad.
And for this one, I'm probably going to drop it down to the F category.
You giving this one an F?
Yeah. I'm going to give this one an F.
Okay. I gave the last one a D. I'm giving this one a D+.
Oh. All right. Any closing thoughts on the second one?
No, I don't got a lot of thoughts about either of these.
No, not really.
Do you think that Jason is full of goop? When he gets cleaved in the arm and in like the neck, he gets chopped, right? And it goes pretty deep.
Yeah.
They don't ever show his insides, and we've seen his regenerative powers. Do you think he's full of goop?
Well, to be fair, we're all full of goop.
No, but I mean like solid goop. You know, like
Yeah.
like if you cut into him, would it be like cutting into clay?
Like he's flubber.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Grommet.
He does bleed.
Yeah, I've thrown my hat in
maybe.
the ring. At this point, I think he's man.
You think he's man?
I think he's
man
Boy
at this
Beast,
point.
yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I think that might be that. Mattress Man.
Thanks for coming, Elton.
Thanks for having me.
If you need more soup, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or go to our website, eatingsoupalone.com. And until next time,